Today, we're going to be checking out the Airis Effects Tiger Max. So the Tiger Max is Airis Effects' first pedal for bass guitar. Now that's pretty cool because there's a lot of pedals on the market for a guitar. You might even say that it's oversaturated, but I feel like bass guitar kind of gets ignored a lot of the time. There aren't a ton of pedals for bass. So what is the Tiger Max? The Tiger Max is essentially a bass overdrive, but I really like to think of it as a tone shaping tool for the bass guitar. Now you could use this to go directly into a board or into your DAW for recording or into some IRs. Or you could use this to hit your pedals or whatever preamp or amplifier you're using. I tend to like this going into an amplifier. Now, if you think about how guitar players use overdrives, we're using them as tone shaping tools before they hit the amp, so that we're pushing certain frequencies while not pushing others, maybe adding a bit of drive or volume. And this kind of acts similarly, but for bass. Now, unsurprisingly, what makes this thing such a good tone shaping tool is that 3-band EQ, because each one of those frequencies that it controls is very, very specific to the bass. The treble control is about 2.6 to 2.7 K, and then the mid-range is much lower. It's about 250 hertz, and the low end is below that with the bass control. Now, of course, that treble adds kind of that top end cut, that aggression, more that kind of click sound or string and finger noise, but I think this thing really lives in the mid-range. The more you turn this thing up, the more of an old school kind of sound you get. It's a little bit more woolly, it's a little bit more almost boxy sounding. You kind of get that old school, like old Iron Maiden tone from like the 70s. And then the more you dial that mid-range control back, the more modern the bass tone starts to sound. And then of course, you can dial in how much or how little low end you want. Now, another great thing about this is that drive control along with its mix knob. Because anytime you're introducing dirt with bass, you don't want a bunch of dirt on the low end, typically anyway. The way to get good bass sounds is to blend in that clean low end, that nice big clean low end, with a more distorted kind of top end or even mid-range. And that's what this really allows you to do. You can crank up the drive, which it isn't a ton of drive, it's just enough to add some kind of grit and aggression on that top end. To make the bass kind of sit with the guitars a little bit better. It's not super distorted. It is very much a mid to lower gain overdrive. It's definitely an overdrive, not a distortion. And then you can blend in how much of that drive you want mixed with that mix control. You can go from a totally clean, dry signal all the way over to having that overdrive totally mixed in. And a big reason to why that overdrive sounds kind of more mid to low gain is because specifically Airis Effects wanted to make sure that they weren't distorting that low end, because like I said, then it just starts getting woolly and undefined, and that's not really what you want. Airis Effects just wanted you to distort the frequencies you want to distort while leaving that low end as clean and big sounding as possible, and I think that's a pretty good idea. So I wanted to show off how flexible this thing was and how you could go from more old school sounds to more new school. So we're going to start off with kind of an old school heavy metal vibe, then we're going to move into thrash metal, then we're going to get a new metal sound, then we're going to get a really nasty kind of more distorted like death metal kind of sound. And I'm going to have this going direct into my board, and I'm going to have that hitting one of the Ampeg amp models in the Ampeg plugin. Let's check it out. So this really showed how it's a good and versatile tone shaping tool for bass. I didn't change anything on the bass amp or the IR settings or any of the EQ stuff. The only thing I changed was the pedal settings, and I was able to take it from old school to new school and a bunch of stuff in between. I was able to get nasty tones, clean tones, super big tones, more mid-rangey tones, and I think they all came out sounding pretty cool. I think this thing definitely nails what it's going for. I'm gonna have a link down below if you want to check this out, if you want to get one for yourself, if you think that this would be good in front of your amp or would really add to your pedal chain or your recording chain. I think that this has something to add to really dial in and clean up your sound and really get exactly what you're after. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Stay metal.